started buying property after property after property, each one making me 500, 600, 1,000. I have properties now making me $3,000 a month in cash flow. After 30 plus properties, I went to my new boss, and I said, I'm laying you off. And I gave him a little, like 2 weeks notice. We're kind of joking. He laughed and says, what are you going to do? I said, I don't have to do anything. And for you listening, what I want you to realize is that you are worth so much more than anybody could ever pay you. And this is how you'll know. Your boss is paying you just enough to keep you working without quitting, but not so much money it takes money out of their pocket. If they paid you what you were worth, they would go broke.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of The Measuring Post, a place to learn and grow together. Today, I'm very excited because we're going to talk about something we typically don't talk about on this show. Normally, we focus on ways that we can be the best versions of ourselves, but sometimes that means finding the best way to use your money to help you build the life that you truly want. And I'm really blessed today to have somebody with me that is going to share a lot of information that we've never really covered on this conversation topic. He's the founder of Master Passive Income. He is a real estate investor who built not only enough passive income to quit his 9-to-5 job, he did it by the age of 37 years old. He's the owner of over 30 rental properties. He's part of a 1,000 apartment unit complex building sort of set up in system. I'll let him explain a little more. He's the best-selling author. He's also the host of an upcoming live event, the Income Building Live Conference. This is a man on a mission to help 1 million people achieve their financial independence. And today he's here to share a little information with us. So please welcome Mr. Dustin Heiner to the Measuring Post. Dustin, how are you today, sir?
Joe, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. I feel better about myself because of how you introduced me. But I super appreciate it. I love investing in real estate, but it's not the real estate itself, because that's how I became financially independent. It's what it allows me to do in my life. And when your podcast is fantastic, so everybody needs to be coming back every week to keep listening in it. And what I found, in order to help me to have a better life in general, like achieving more and structuring my life to where I can help and serve more people, it was because I reached financial independence. I've been financially independent for like 10 years now, which has been amazing. But because of that, I can now serve people. I can now transform my life. I have time. Remember, 40 plus hours of your life go into somebody else working a job. And so I appreciate you having me on. I just love talking about talking to other podcasters and then talking about real estate, helping people to change their lives.
Yeah, and real estate's one of those things that's been tried and true for every generation for the last 150 years. And it's one of those investments that people think is very daunting. I know if you're trying to become a first-time home buyer right now, next to impossible unless you have some sort of benefactor that's going to financially put a down payment down, or you're a first-time home buyer, get into a down payment assistance program. I also have a mortgage background as well. So I'm a licensed NMLS agent. So that's been something that is very near and dear to my heart. But actually purchasing the real estate and finding ways to invest into it, it seems very daunting to the average person. So I'm really excited to learn not only a bit about your framework, but how you can educate some of us along the way. But I think it's really important what you described. Trading time for money is never going to get you to where you want to be to have freedom, actual freedom. Now, you might make a lot of money in your hourly 9-to-5 salary-based job, and it might really sort of get you, the financial freedom you want, but you lose a lot of the time freedom. And that's really the most important thing. That's one thing we talk about a lot on this show, and in sort of my companies in my lifestyle OS, for lack of a better term. It's really focused on building systems that free up time. So this might be one of those things I have to add to my repertoire. So really excited to hear about this. But before you got to this financial freedom section of your life in this era, sort of what made you get to the point where you said, I can't live like this anymore. I don't want to work like this. How do I break the mold? How did you get to that point?
Yeah. So I'll jump to the very end. I've got 30 plus properties now, lots of apartment complexes, and invest in lots and have lots of businesses. But I didn't start there. I started just like most people, if not every single person starts. So you go to school, and this is what you're taught by somebody else. Go to school, get good grades. Then you go take those good grades and go to college, university, and get in thousands and thousands of dollars into debt and get a piece of paper called a degree. And you go and shop around a bunch of companies and try to find a quote unquote career, working 40 plus years of your life, and then retiring at 65, 70 years old and living on 40% of what you managed to save that entire time, working a dead-end job is what I call it, because you're living just over broke when you're working for somebody else. Well, I'm doing the exact same thing. In fact, I get the most stable, secure job you could ever think of. I'm working in a local county government doing technology in California. California is not going away, technology is not going away, and government's definitely not going away. Well, I get the most stable, secure job. But I bought one rental property back in 2006. I bought one rental property and I started making, I think it was like $300 or $400 a month in cash flow. That's after all expenses are paid, money in my pocket every single month. I was like, man, that's like almost $7,000 a year. I thought I need to become an investor. Well, Joe, you know what happens? Life started getting in the way. I'm still working at dead end job. My wife and I started having kids, 1, 2, 3, and 4 kids. But this is what really shoved me to become and change my life to become a real estate investor. So when my wife had her 4th child, I went on paternity leave. That's where the dad stays home with the mom, changes poopy diapers and all the good stuff, and bonds with the baby. Well, after 2 weeks of being off work, I go back to work. In that same week I go back to work, I get a call from my boss's secretary, the top dog. She says, Dustin, would you please come to the office? I said, sure. And I hung up the phone. I paused for a second. This is Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon. I've seen plenty of movies. This is not a good sign. And that I was remembered. There was some rumors that there could potentially be layoffs because the county was having budget issues. I immediately shook it off. I said, there's no way. I've been here. I got great seniority, 12 plus years here. Bosses think I do a great job. So I shake that off. And I get up and I start walking down the hallway to my boss's office. Well, as I was walking, the weight of potentially losing my job started weighing down on me. And this hallway wasn't very long. In fact, it's kind of short. But every single step that I took felt like the hallway got longer and longer and longer. And it felt like my feet became lead bricks because the weight of potentially losing my job was just crushing me. Well, I get down the hallway and I turn the corner and I see my boss's door. His door's closed. And I see his secretary there, super sweet, nice old lady. And she says, Dustin, would you please have a seat? And she's kind of sheepishly grinning at me, trying to console me with her eyes because she knows everything about what's going on. I know nothing about what's going on. So I go and sit down and I take my seat. And I start thinking about my life, this entire plan that we're all taught. If I get laid off right now, did I just waste my life doing this something that somebody else told me? And I thought, oh my goodness, we just had our 4th kid. If I can't feed my family because I can't work a job, does that make me a failure as a father? Does that make me a failure as a husband, as a man trying to provide for his family? Well, as I'm sitting there, my hands get all clammy, my forehead gets all sweaty because the nerves are just crushing me. Well, the door to my boss's office opens up, and out walks a coworker of mine with a piece of paper in her hands. She is devastated. Well, she passes by me, and my boss ushered me into his office, and I get laid off. And remember, this is the government. Nobody gets fired or laid off from the government, but I did. And this is the reason why I tell the story. So I took that layoff notice, and I went back to my desk, and I realized 2 things sitting there in my desk. Number one, I need to get another job. I need to be able to provide for my family. So I was really blessed, praise the Lord, to find another job in the same county, a different department, wasn't having those budget issues. So check. But then the second thing, sitting there in my chair, just getting laid off, I realized I need to make sure this never, ever happens to me again. I need to make sure that nobody has the ability to take away my ability to feed my family. So right then and there, I realize whenever we get asked the question, what do you do? I would respond with my job. Well, whenever we respond with whatever it is, we're projecting out to the world what we put our value in. And I realized I was putting my value in my job, and I realized my value does not come from my job. My value comes from my God and from myself and from my family. So right then and there, I told myself, I would always respond to everybody that I am an investor. It may so happen that 100% of my money came from my job. That's now my part-time job. I'm a full-time investor. So fast forward story. Started buying property after property after property, each one making me $500, $600, $1,000. I have properties now making me $3,000 a month in cash flow. So last quick part of the story. After 30 plus properties, I went to my new boss, and I said, I'm laying you off. And I gave him a little, like 2 weeks notice. We kind of joking. He laughed and says, what are you going to do? I said, I don't have to do anything. I own real estate that makes me money without working. Last quick part of the story. I would walk to and from my job to my car, 1.5 miles each way because I was too frugal to pay for parking. Well, I felt like I was walking on clouds because I knew I would never, ever need a job again. And for you listening, what I want you to realize is that you are worth so much more than anybody could ever pay you. And this is how you'll know. Your boss is paying you just enough to keep you working without quitting, but not so much money it takes money out of their pocket. If they paid you what you were worth, they would go broke. So instead, what I suggest is finding a way to make cash flow where you're making money, where you work one time and get paid over and over and over again. Whether it's starting a business, investing in real estate, whatever it might be, my suggestion is to get cash flow every single month without working. Trading time for money is not what you want. You want to work one time, get paid over and over again. So, Joe, I'll pause the story because you probably got plenty of questions.
Yeah, no, I love it. And you're 100% right about that. You have to get to a point where you just truly decide that I'm not going to trade my time for money. This isn't the 1940s where the father goes and works the plumbing job 40 hours a week, one household income. He gets the pension at 40 years of retirement, and the whole family lives in a nice brick house, the white picket fence. That doesn't exist anymore. So you do have to understand that you either need to scale your ability to make income outside of you. You either have to have an asset like real estate or maybe a cryptocurrency, something that appreciates at a volume where it doesn't require you to be doing the work. Because, and like Warren Buffett said, if you can't find a way to make money in your sleep, you'll always be poor, or something along those lines. And it's a very true statement. You have to find income that is what is part of your name. It's passive, meaning I'm not going to pick up a shovel and dig a hole to make this $300. It just comes to me because I own something that's either appreciating or it's working in a market that doesn't require my effort. So you're really hitting the head on the nail there, the nail on the head there. But also I come from a radio background before even getting into mortgages. So one thing that is really prevalent in radio in the same sort of mentality, you could be there 10, 15 years. You could be the greatest on-air jock. You could be the best promotions director. And you walk in one day and all your stuff's in a little box by the front door. No ifs, ands, or buts, no rhyme or reason. Just, hey, we're changing things up. Hey, we flipped the station from country to rock and roll and you're out. And there's no security there whatsoever, which is really part of the reason why I got out of radio full time, went into the mortgage side of things. And it was because I was still trading time for money, but the money was better and the time was less. And the security was a little more because it was basically 1099 self-employed. I don't close deals. I don't make any money. So really it was a product of how hard I wanted to work. As I've gotten into my 40s, I've decided that, very similar to you, I would much rather build systems that operate 24/7. And right now in the booming AI world, there's so many opportunities that are being overlooked. You can apply AI to real estate. You can apply it to investing. You can apply it to whatever, radios and podcasting. I literally build AI podcast systems that get sold while I'm sleeping. That doesn't require me being on sales calls. It doesn't require me trading my valuable time. Instead, I build something using my God-given talents, and then I let the world sort of operate around it. So I love everything that you said there. And really, there's so much truth to it. People don't invest in themselves. They invest in their jobs or their degrees. And I think you've got a much better system. So really excited to learn, and hear about the mindset shift.
Yeah, you're 100% right too, that people, they really invest in themselves and they don't realize it. They go to college and that's investing in themselves. And then when they just start going and they just take whatever they're taught, but they don't outside of college. Like once they're out of college, they don't think to invest in themselves anymore. Like, how do I invest in myself? In fact, there's a fantastic book. One of my favorite books is Richest Man in Babylon. Richest Man in Babylon, written by George S. Clausen. Fantastic book teaching financial principles through story form, like a parable type story. Amazing. But one of them is pay yourself first. If you pay yourself first instead of paying your bills and paying all this other, and even luxuries, meaning you pay yourself first, where you're investing in yourself, buying investments, investing in the stock market, which I don't do, but if you do, but then also getting more education, helping yourself to advance beyond college. And in the end, what I found when I bought my first rental property, I realized that I didn't work anymore because my property, like not even a person, my property did all the work for me. Now I did. Here's one huge thing we could definitely dive into, like the mindset of how to become a business owner as opposed to an investor, which I can get to in just a second. People think, well, Dustin, don't you have to manage a property? I'm like, no, I hire other people. I hire experts to do all of that work. And here's the one quick thing, the mindset shift too. Was stopping from being an employee to becoming an owner, a business owner, but not just a business owner. Because a lot of people think if you invest in real estate, you're an investor. I don't think, I don't consider myself an investor. Now, I do invest my money. I invest my money in things, but what I do is everybody, if you're listening to this, I want to tell you, don't be an investor, be a business owner. And this is what I mean. Let's say you buy stock. You're just going to put your money in there and hope the value goes up. Just like in 2008, when the crash happened, people bought real estate hoping that the value would go up, but they're bankrupt. They went bankrupt. In fact, I cannot even tell, I can't even count how many people have told me that they went bankrupt in 2008 because they were not investing like a business owner. They were not looking as a business owner. They were hoping for the value to go up. So what I'm telling you and everybody, don't see yourself as an investor. See yourself as a business owner that owns and creates income every single month that brings money into your pocket. Is that making sense?
That makes perfect sense. And I'm a big proponent of owning businesses, even, flipping businesses as a business. So people flip cars, people flip real estate. That's great. Those are great assets. They appreciate. If you play your cards right, you can make a fortune doing that. Businesses are great because it's not only a flippable asset at some point, but it also can be a great cash flow passive income. And you said one thing that's really important that people forget. And a lot of people, okay, so like when I started my first couple of businesses, I wore every hat in the business. I was HR, I was payroll, I was sales, I was marketing, I was creative. I had to because I couldn't afford to pay anybody, right? When you finally decide or save up a little nest egg and you go, I'm going to bring someone on to do this busy work for me. All of a sudden, it compounds into now I've got more time to do more sales. Listen, if you're a business owner, find needle moving activities that move your financial needle. Not spending 5 hours on a website, not making the most beautiful logo. Those things are great. They're luxuries. They don't move your financial needle. If I spend 8 weeks designing this beautiful website, but nobody goes to it, who cares? That's just a pet project. Maybe I learned a new skill. It didn't help me grow my business or my income ability. So I absolutely agree that owning a business is number one. Then finally relinquishing control of a little bit of the daily operations. Now that's the hard part. People don't want to relinquish control. They want to be able to make every decision. I need to sit on every sales call. If you live that way, you can only go as far as time takes you, which is 12-hour days. If you work that much, which is overkill if you're working 12-hour days, you'll burn out. You'll run out of steam. People get tired of working with you. Stuff falls through the crack. And now like I said, we're a bit more blessed right now. You can have a virtual assistant, but now you can make your own with AI. You can make little agents that answer all your emails, that go through your calendar and give you briefings, stuff that normally would take hours out of your day. Set up the right system so you can focus on what really matters, being the business owner, not the guy or gal that wears every single hat in the business.
Absolutely. And that's something I do. Actually, in 2006, when I first started investing, I didn't have any money. So a lot of people think, well, Dustin, how do I invest when I don't have any money? Which I know 20 different ways to get financing. And I call it access to capital, like creative financing, ways to buy real estate, 20 different ways. But back then, I realized I did it the wrong way when I first started investing back in 2006. I did not implement systems. I did not implement procedures and processes because I didn't know what they were. I was just trying to be an investor, buying a property. And I realized I did it wrong when my property manager started stealing from me within 6 months. It was terrible because I didn't know what I was doing. But if I would have just hung my head and said, oh, it just doesn't work, I'm not going to do it ever again, then I wouldn't be here today. But I thought there's got to be a way. I started many businesses in the past, and I said, let me approach this from a business mindset. So instead of just setting and forgetting it, and then bad things happen, instead I built a business. And now I invest in 5 different states: Ohio, Texas, Arizona, Tennessee, and Indiana. And in all these different areas I invest, I love investing out of state. I've coached thousands of people now to invest out of state. What happens is you make cash flow, but you have to build a business. You have to have those systems, procedures, and processes put in place. Now, if you're going to be investing in real estate, let me give you a little bit of practical, in like an analogy of what it looks like to build a business. So let's say you're going to start a convenience store business, candy bars and soda machines, all good stuff. Well, you would not sign a lease on a location, open the doors, and set a box of candy bars in there on the ground. You wouldn't do that. What you would do is you would build the business first. You get the gondolas. Those are the shelving units that all the candy bars go on, the countertops, cold storage, bank accounts, cash registers, insurance, like everything in the business before you buy any inventory. Same thing with real estate investing. You want to build all that out. And then every piece of property is a piece of inventory that goes into your business. You're not going to fall in love with this property. You might sell it in the future, but you're going to be making cash flow. This is your business that you're creating. What I have had is students come to me and say, Dustin, I follow those TikTok gurus. They told me just to buy a property anywhere and run the numbers, meaning hopefully I'm going to make a little bit of money, but I'm going to get appreciation because prices are going up. And then I try to call and get somebody to manage my property, but every property manager told me they would not manage it because they'll get shot there. I'm like, oh, you don't have an asset. You have a liability now. So instead of, after spending thousands of dollars to buy it, thousands of dollars to fix it up, not finding tenants, not finding property managers, instead of doing that, you build the business first. You find the right people, property managers, contractors, insurance agents, mortgage brokers, plumbers, roofers, contractors, like handymen, everybody in the business, and they are the experts. When I invest in 5 different states, I'm not the expert. In fact, I've coached thousands of people. Students would say, hey, Dustin, you're the expert in this city because you invest there. And I say, no, 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 no. I'm not the expert. I hire the experts. I might know a little bit, but I want them to tell me because it's their business. They're the experts. They live there on the ground. And so that's what I talk about when you're building a business first. You build the entire thing, get the right people. And so instead of calling up a property manager saying, I already bought this property, and they say, no, I won't manage it, then you're stuck with a liability. Instead of that, what you do is you build a business, you call up the property manager and say, property manager, I'm looking to buy, not I already bought it, I'm looking to buy this property, number 1 Happy Street, whatever the address is. Will you manage it? What's the vacancy factor? What are the clientele like? And how much will it rent for? And if they tell you no, then you don't waste the time and money buying this property and pulling out all your hair. But if they tell you that, yes, they're going to tell you how much it's rent for, what type of clientele. They're going to tell you all of that, and even how much it's going to cost to fix up. That's what I'm talking about when you build the business, and then the business helps you to find and buy the right inventory because you have all the experts doing all that stuff for you. Is this all making sense?
Yeah, and it really turns into a flywheel. And you said a couple of things that really I think are important to remember here. One, like you're talking about when you first invested back in 2006, how you simply just didn't do it right. And by right, I mean just like by best standards, best practices, right? So now here you are 20 years later, teaching people the systems you've built along the way. So really what we're getting to learn from a guy like you is 20 years of mistakes that led to the success model, right?
It
And
is.
that's a lot of things that really, that's why I'm a big proponent in reading and read biographies, because you can consolidate a lifetime of knowledge into 200 or 300 pages. And from that, I don't have to learn 20 years of hard lessons. I can just trust that you're telling me the truth because that's why I bought the book, right? And that sort of plays into what you're talking about with the project managers or property managers. I don't want to go learn about all of the markets in Indiana. There's already somebody there that knows that. Why would I not take the time and instead vet the person I want to work with, really get the right research and market research to understand, okay, XYZ property management's the one to go with. Here's why. Here's their reviews. Here's their ratings. Okay, now we're going to bring them on. Now I can trust this person because I did my homework on them. And I've used this in podcasts before, but it's the old Steve Jobs adage. I don't hire smart people to tell them what to do. I hire them so they can tell me what to do. And there's so much truth in that I've used it probably 3 or 4 times on podcasts. And it's because that's exactly what you're doing as a business owner. Whether you're buying car washes or homes or vending machines. I had a good friend, no longer with us, but he bought vending machines and ATMs, made good money doing it along the ways, because not only did he get the right deal on the machine, he scouted the location. Is it going to be a place that's going to get robbed every other weekend? Then I don't want to put one there. So doing some due diligence up front really can save you a lot of headaches, but more importantly, bringing the right team in around you will circumvent a lot of the headaches you're going to run into, and you will run into them regardless. But
one other thing to add to that, and you're 100% spot on with everything. The other thing that I also try to make sure that anybody that I talk to and I tell them is, do not invest for appreciation. You want to invest for cash flow. Let me give you an example. So let's say you can buy and sell a candy bar all day, every day for 50 cents. You could buy it for, but you could sell it for $1. Be like, man, I'm going to buy as many candy bars as I can because I'll make 50 cents at every transaction. But what you would not do is buy it for $2 when you could only sell it for $1 and hoping that it'll go up in value to $3 by let's say 3 years from now. You wouldn't do that. The business needs to make money every single month on every single transaction. Same thing with real estate investing. I had, like I was saying, back in 2008, when the crash happened, I saw just countless. So many people, real estate investors, they would call themselves real estate investors. They're speculators. They were hoping for the value to go up. I don't do that. In fact, if the market goes up, down, or sideways, I make money. The reason why is because I build a business. That's the first part, which I just talked about a little bit ago. The second part is a business makes income. So one thing I love to do is teach everybody and tell everybody, you want to build income into your real estate investing business. Could be a short-term property, long-term property, meaning like Airbnb or 12-month leases or 30, 60, 90 days, which is a midterm, even co-living. We have all these different options, but the main goal is to make cash flow every single month, because the only way to become successfully unemployed, which is my favorite term. I used to say I was retired, but at 37 years old, people are like, what do you do with your time? I'm like, actually a lot. I build businesses, I invest in real estate. So now I just say successfully unemployed. But with that, I have a lot of people looking at me and say, well, Dustin, how do I make sure that I'm financially independent? What it really comes down to is you have a certain amount of expenses that you have. Let's say you have $5,500 a month that you have in expenses, mortgage, insurance, all whatever, food and all that stuff. Well, as long as you build in the income from every property that you buy, then eventually you have enough properties. Let me share with how that, like the easy numbers. You buy one property that makes you $500 a month. That is $6,000 a year without working. That's a pretty good raise. But if you had 10 properties at $500 a month, that's $5,000 a month without working. That's the minimum. That's the floor. And that's $60,000 a year. 20 properties is $10,000 a month. That is $120,000 a year. Just imagine if you started buying properties now. And I love this, I guess maybe it's a Chinese proverb or something. I love asking the question, when is the best time to invest in real estate? But the question is, when's the best time to plant a tree? It was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. When's the best time to invest in real estate? It was 20 years ago. When I first started investing, I make a lot of money now. But the next best time is literally today. So if you start investing now, you buy one house now, and then you start scaling. My students, in fact, one of my students, I just talked to him today. He just quit his job. He put his 2 weeks in yesterday because now he has 29 units, making him a lot of money in cash flow. He quit his job. So that's the other second thing. Number one, stop being an investor, be a business owner. Build that business first is the second thing. And the third thing, making sure that you're making and building income into your business so that you can quit your job, retire early, and be successfully employed.
100%. And you said a lot of things that just make my little hamster wheel roll in circles here. And, you talk about, I love the cash flow over appreciation. And let me explain, coming from a mortgage background as well. From about 2015 to about 2024, prices were like booming, right? If you were to have gotten in at the right time, you might have made a pretty penny on flipping those homes, where you could take an enormous chunk of equity right away. That's not going to be the norm. And even since 2024, now they're starting to flatten out, and eventually they'll start to decline slightly. It's not going to be some huge, massive drop. But you're absolutely right. I'm not going to buy something at $3 and hope I can sell it, or buy it at $2 and hope I can sell it at $3 eventually, right? And for an example, look at all the people who bought thousands of those little fidget spinners. Remember when those things were going, or even during COVID, I bought 5,000 boxes of hand sanitizer, and now they're living out of their garage, basically pleading and begging someone to buy them because I sunk half my life savings into this. That is the idea of hoping for appreciation or scarcity or supply and demand. Call it what you want. Those aren't smart investments long-term. But there is another side to investing in real estate. I'm sure you would agree to a certain extent. If you ever were in a real pinch, if you ever all of a sudden had a huge illness, a family member, something, the nice thing about owning something like real estate is it is an asset that has a significant value to it, especially if you bought one 15 years ago and you bought it for $100,000 and it's paid off or close to, but now it's worth $500,000. All of a sudden you go, hey man, something happened, or I want to do this year-long trip with me and the 4 kids and the wife, and we're going to cruise the whole world. Guess what? I'm just going to sell this one. I'm going to net 380 grand. And now I'm just going to let my property managers run my other units. I'm going to jet set around the world in style with a pocket full of cash and zero worries in the background. So there's so many ways you can build these things. And again, you're not going to go from 1 unit to 1,000 or 30 properties like you.
It takes time.
That took 20 years of learning and experience to do that. But tell me more importantly, because here's something I think people really want to hear. This is what motivates people. It's not learning systems. It's not having lots of money. What does actual time freedom feel like? And I know you're busy still. You got 4 kids. That alone makes you have no free time. But the reality is, when you don't have to trade your time for money, What does that weight lifting off your shoulders feel like?
Wow. So you're 100% right. With time freedom, it helps you to realize the value of time. The most expensive thing any of us will ever spend is time, but the culmination of our time on this earth is our life, and that's the most expensive thing that you will ever spend is your life here. And if you're working a dead end job, living just over broke, then that's it, your entire life is spent there. But the time freedom now helps me to realize that I need to make the most use of my time right now. And if I give you a quick example, I'm a very frugal guy. Like I've grown up very, very frugal. In fact, I was so poor. My mom and dad, my mom and stepdad, after my parents divorced, we lived in a 900 square foot house, 2 bedroom, rented, and we were so poor. But I didn't know it because we didn't dwell on it. We just kept living our lives. But now I'm so blessed. Now I have plenty of money. But now I look at, even though I'm very frugal, I'm like, okay, if I save $100 here by spending my time an hour doing it, well, that means my time is worth $100. Well, I know my time is actually worth like a lot more. It's like maybe $10,000 an hour if I were to charge somebody, because now my time, I make so much money in every single hour, minute of every day, let alone every single hour. And here's the thing that I've also changed. So, number one, time, I see it as the most amazing commodity that you could spend, and you don't want to waste it. That's number one. And so, trading time for money, I started thinking I have to change that. But here's another thing. I started realizing this is what the rich do. The rich, instead of spending their time to make money, they spend their money to make their time. And on top of that, so you brought up a valid point that I used to think like this too, where, oh man, if I had 20 properties, I could just sell one in 30 years. Can I have all that money? Well, the rich don't do that. You want to know what the rich do? So what the rich do instead, let's say they had 20 properties and they said, hey, this one has, let's say 50,000. No, so let's make it a little better, because after 20 years, and here's one quick thing. Real estate doubles every 15 years in value. Did you know that? So 150,000 a home in 15 years will be $300,000, and in 15 years later, that's $600,000. It's insane. But then after 30 years, your mortgage is paid off. But this is what the rich do. They start thinking, well, if I sell an investment property, do I have to pay taxes on that? Yeah, I'm probably going to be spending or paying 40% in taxes. Capital gains. That's why I don't like to flip properties. In fact, I never sell properties. Here's what you do. Remember, it's mindset shift that we're trying to figure out how we can best utilize our time and see what other people are doing. So the rich, this is what they do. They don't sell that and pay 40% taxes. They get a home equity line of credit, or they do a cash out refinance, and they pull that cash out, pay 6% to the bank instead of 40%. And then they still have that property making them cash flow every single month. And then once that mortgage is paid off, let's say they borrowed that $380,000 instead of selling it, then they still have that property, say another 30 years later, they give it to their kids. Their kids, that mortgage is paid off, and they use that 380 grand to go do whatever they want. That's what the rich do. And this is not the only thing. Real estate, people, like let's say wealthy, that's Elon Musk. He, in one interview, said he holds very little money in cash. Well, the reason why, he has all his money in stocks in his companies, and if he needs money, he just gets a line of credit on that. So let's say you had $500,000, which is a lot of money. I completely get it. You buy $500,000 worth of stock. And then that bank say, hey, this is my collateral. This is what you can take. If I don't pay back the loan, give me a loan on it. Same thing with real estate. So now 30 plus properties for me, I get loans on these properties, and then I buy more real estate, which makes me more money. It's absolutely insane how if you start thinking a little bit differently than an employee, employees, we're just stuck working dead end job. Well, instead, if you learn the other ways, like at the very, very beginning, I said, a lot of us, what we do is we realize we invested in ourselves when we went to college, but then we stop investing in ourselves. What I've done now is I've spent, like last year, I spent $50,000 to be a part of 1 year coaching and mentoring program. It was amazing. It blew my mind, everything, but I never thought I'd be spending 50 grand for 1 year. Well, I'm blessed to have enough money to do that because I've worked hard, but now it's growing so much more. And so like all my students, I got thousands of students now. It's like, how can I help more people? So I got my podcast and just give away my books. And it's like, now let's help more and more people, because they need to realize that as they invest, their life will change and get better. And now they can serve other people.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack there. And you're absolutely right. And I think it was actually Warren Buffett again who said this. It might have been a different, very smart, savvy investor over the history, but there's good debt and there's bad debt. That might even be rich dad, poor dad. I'm not sure. But the reality is exactly what you're saying now. Like just having a bunch of, $100,000 on your American Express, paying 29% interest, bad debt. That's bad debt. having a HELOC that you can draw off of and then use to invest into a business, another property, something that is going to benefit you at a much lower interest rate, that's good debt. And the smart people do that. They don't use their own money. They're not going into their savings account and pulling out 20 grand and then using that. They're going, I have an asset. Let me borrow this money, get the cash flow I need to do what I want, pay back at a very low interest rate while I'm quadrupling the money that I actually took off of the line of credit.
Escaping taxes.
And then but I think the bigger struggle is people just can't get that first one done. It's that first hump. Once you make that first jump, and then you can, and again, like I said earlier, the flywheel. Once you get into flywheel motion, whether it's flipping businesses, houses, or like doing exactly what you're doing, once you can save up enough to make number one happen, and then you see the investment wheel, the full circle, that's when not only does the light finally click, but then you can build enough sort of breathing room where I'm not living paycheck to paycheck. I'm sure your students, that's one of the biggest objections of just getting into this lifestyle. It's like, I don't know how to do this. How do I find this money? And obviously, without giving away your blueprint of your master class.
I can give it away. No, I love helping people. My goal is to help 1 million people.
Yeah. So again, that was my next topic. Your mission is 1 million financially independent people coming out of your boot camps. So how does that look? How does it start? Where are you at now? And where can we find this information? How can we get involved?
Oh, awesome. Well, I'm going to give you 20 different, well, it'll be hard for me to go through all of them, but I'll give you exactly how to get started, even if you have no money and no credit, in just a second. But if you want to get my investing course completely for free, you can text the word rental, RENTAL, rental to 33777, rental to 33777, or go to masterpassiveincome.com/free course. All one word, /free course. And I've had so many people just from that free course start investing, which is amazing because it helps me feel fulfilled. Like I helped another human being get what they most wanted in life, but it helped you to build a business anywhere in the country, scale it to where you're buying properties with no money out of your own pocket, but scale to where you become financially independent. Or you can listen to Master Passive Income. My podcast is Master Passive Income. And if you look up, it's so awesome, Joe. If you look up real estate investing in Apple Podcast, just real estate investing, I'm almost always number one. In fact, it's been like 4 or 5 years. I'm number one. You can find me, but it's just me coaching how to do this. So with my goal of helping 1 million people to invest in real estate, I'm like, how do I get the broadest word out there to tell everybody and just do it for free? Like you just listen to my podcast. In fact, one of my students, huge success, he's not necessarily like, he didn't pay me for coaching. He just listened to my podcast and he just started investing and did really well. But let me quickly give you, if you don't have any money, you don't have any credit, if you want to get started investing in real estate, I know of 20 different ways to get money, which I call, instead of saying like other people's money or money in general, I call it access to capital. Access to capital, meaning, this is what the rich people think, I need to use money that's not my own, could be somebody else's or whatever, to buy real estate. Let me give you a couple examples. So one of my students, his name was Benjamin. He's a pastor in Sacramento, California. And pastors don't make much money, if not no money at all. But he's like, I want to be able to not have to work the rest of my life. And he didn't have any money. And I said, well, let's figure out what you had. And so I started coaching him. And he didn't have anything other than a house he bought in 2017. So that went up. That's lots of more value. And so he got a home equity line of credit on that property, $250,000 that it's access to the capital. Then he bought a house in Atlanta, Georgia, fixed it up, got it rented out, just the whole plan that I tell everybody, build a business and do all that stuff. He's making like $400 or $500 a month in cash flow, then refinanced that property, pulled all of that cash back out and paid off his HELOC. And so he has this property, none of his own money. That's just one example. Another example, here's another great way to do it. If you find a seller who has a fantastic loan, which I'll give you a quick, easy way to do it. Like I'll give you some of the one-on-one coaching. If you go to Zillow, let's say you use Zillow to find a property, and in I think it's the More button, go all the way down and you see keywords. Keywords, if you type in the word assume or assumption or assumable, a loan that can be assumed by you from somebody else, they put this all their time. If it's assumable, hey, we have this house, it's 2.5% assumable loan, which means you don't have to get a 6.5%, 7%, 8% loan. There's a 2.5% loan already on that property, and then you assume that loan. That's just another option is somebody, maybe sadly they might be getting divorced, and this happens all the time. They're in hard times and they need out of this property. And they say, just take it from me. Well, you can start making the payments to the bank in their name. It's called a subject to. You're taking over the property subject to the current mortgage. And then you have none of your own money in the deal. They're out because they don't have to keep making those payments. There's so many private money lenders, hard money lenders. I've used signature loans. I've used portfolio loans, bundled loans. I bundled like 6 properties together, pulled all that cash to buy a 350 unit apartment complexes, $35 million property, all this stuff. It's just, this is what I love to give are options. And when I first got started investing, I didn't know all the options. I had to learn as I went. And now I've got 20 different options to help people to invest in real estate. Basically, think of it like this. Think of it like a tool in a tool belt. If you're a construction worker, you get a tool belt with a bunch of tools. Well, all these 20 different ways to get financing, whichever property comes your way, you figure out which tool fits into this property. Maybe it might be a private money loan, assuming that loan, as well as maybe you're using a signature loan from a bank. I just love giving as many options out there. And like for my podcast, Master Passive Income, the YouTube channel, the most downloaded ones and the most listened to ones and watched are the ones how to get money. So you're 100% right, Joe. That's exactly how to get money to buy real estate when, honestly, if you do it right, if you know your options, you don't even need any money at all.
Yeah, and you said the right word that really triggered something. It's the toolbox. What you need to understand is not every deal you go into is going to be identical. They're not cookie cutter. Real estate has different rules in different states, different counties, different types of loans, whether you're doing a hard money loan or an FHA loan, but you can only have one at a time for those, or VA loans, you can only have one at a time. Conventional loans, they have different protocols, requirements, guidelines, policies, whatever you want to call them. They call them guidelines. So the essential idea is having a robust toolkit and access to capital and options and opportunities that then you can plug and play the ones that fit the right scenario for that particular deal. So I love that that's what you're teaching. And again, guys, take them up on that. Text the word rental to 33777. Also check out the website, of course, masterpassiveincome.com/free course. I will definitely be checking that out as well because I think this is such a valuable thing. And me coming from a real estate background, more on the mortgage financing side, I'm really bummed that I never really got into this. And again, you're right. I should have 20 years ago, but nothing's stopping me from doing that today. So with that in mind, I do have a question. What are some of the biggest mistakes you see new investors making that you would sort of say, hey, if you're really interested, at least don't do these first couple of bad mistakes out of the gates?
The biggest mistake I see people do is, and I've touched on it or I've talked about it, is they buy a property without building a business first. Now, they might follow those TikTok gurus that say, hey, just make sure that you're making cash flow, make sure that you think you could get this much money for it, and whatever. Like, just follow this TikTok guru who maybe they have a couple properties, but I've been investing in since 2006, 20 years. The people who started investing in the since 2020, it's only been an up market. It's been great. So they've been like, of course, we're making so much money. I have invested in the down market where everybody was going broke, but I didn't. I made more money because let's say if there is a correction or if there's a crash in the market, and eventually there will be, I think there will be some sort of correction. It could even be huge. I don't know. But the amazing thing is in 2008-9, when everybody was bankrupt, everybody was doing bad, I made more money. Well, you might be, why did you make more money? Sadly, people were losing their homes in foreclosure because they lost their jobs. I mean, it's very sad. But they still got to live somewhere. So they became renters. The demand for my properties skyrocketed. So rents went up. And because I was not hoping, in fact, I didn't care if appreciation went up. I didn't care if the value went down or I just didn't have any value. The property was still making me money. So fast forward to now, all those people online that are not telling you to build a business, like I'm telling you, build a business first. And the experts will make sure you're buying in the right city areas because even a great city will still have bad areas that you do not want to invest in. And so I'll give you some more one-on-one coaching tips. So what I coach my students is, let's say you're finding a new city to invest in and we invest out of state. Remember, I invest in 5 different states. My students invest all over the country. But here's the biggest question you need to do. So you build the business first by finding the property manager. The biggest question you need to do is a list of questions. In fact, I give my students like 20 plus questions to ask their property manager, not asking a realtor, not asking a mortgage broker, not asking anybody. Your number one quarterback, the quarterback of your team, of your business, the number one person is your property manager. Because anybody could buy a property. Anybody, there's billions of realtors out there. There's so many of them, but there are only a handful of good property managers who will make you money every single month for 10, 15 years. I don't want to talk to my property managers. I just want to get money every month, which is what's great. And so the biggest thing that you need to do is ask questions and interview the property managers. Interview them before you hire them. But here's a big question. Like, one of the favorite questions I always ask and tell my students to ask is, property manager, if you were to invest your own personal money in the city, where would that be? And you can also ask the question, where would you not invest? And they probably won't tell you because they don't want to, maybe seem like it's discriminatory. But if you say, where would you invest your money? They'll tell you exactly. Oh, yes, because they want your business. Like northeast, like this zip code, this area is great. But, I kind of steer away from the other areas because this one's fantastic. This is where I put my money. And if you're interviewing 6, 7, 8 different property managers, don't just take the first one and say, oh, this one's good, let me go and do that. That's the wrong way to do it. If you ask 6, 7, 8 different property managers that same question, you'll get narrowed down which ones are great areas in that specific city so that you start honing in on that one. So if there is anything that you need to do, it's you build the business, make sure you're making income, and make sure you get the experts, the right people doing the work for you.
No, I love it. And you're absolutely right. And, that's doing your due diligence up front, getting all your ducks in a row. They call it 100 different things, but the mentality is absolutely right. You have to have that framework and foundation built in any aspect, whether it's, home buying or business building or whatever that looks like. So real quick, before we wrap this up, I wanted to talk about coming up soon. You've got a live event, a conference that you do called the Income Building Live. And that's actually going on like in 2 days.
2 weeks. So we got to, well, whenever you're
price
launching
is going
this,
up.
March 19th.
Got you.
Yes. Prices going up March 19th in Nashville.
Perfect. Yeah, that's awesome. So tickets are going up as of March 6th. So if this is after March 6th, which this is actually coming out tomorrow. So
perfect.
We're gonna fast track this one. So tomorrow, when you hear this conversation, it'll be Thursday, March 5th. So prices are going up tomorrow, but you can head over to my.incomebuilder.io. Check that out. You can maybe get tickets if that's an area where you're at. You want to see live events, see workshops on how people actually do that. If traveling is not in the budget in this short amount of time, because let's be real, that's in 2 weeks basically from today, head over to masterpassiveincome.com. They do have free courses there. The podcast of his, which is available, an amazingly informative tool for your toolbox that you're building out. And then again, texting rental to 33777 is going to get you the fast track of understanding what you need to do if this is something that you think makes sense for you, your family, your future, your financial independence. I certainly know that I'm going to be going through some of this. This has been really informative, but also it's motivating. That's one thing that this show is meant to be about. It's not just look at me, look at my fancy stuff, look at these great people we bring in. It's how did you get here? How can we mimic this? Does this make sense for me? And then are you willing to share sort of the keys to the kingdom? And what I love about you, Dustin, is that you absolutely are willing to do that. And I can't thank you enough for the work that you're doing. I think it's something that's it's overlooked. A lot of people like to gatekeep their information, and I like finding the people that are willing to give it away because it's gonna come back to you at some point anyways, right?
It sure does. Yeah. I personally, so I make my money through real estate. I've got lots of properties, make lots of money. So all of this coming on podcasts, giving away books, my podcast, like everything that I do and putting on my live event, which is 3 days of just coaching people how to do this. It's all fun. This is all fun for me. But here's the reason why I really realized that giving was so much better. Well, obviously I read the Bible. So giving is better than receiving. Jesus says that. But at the same time, when I bought my first property, it was a great accomplishment. I was like, I accomplished something, but I felt like I needed more accomplishment. When I quit my job, that was another great accomplishment, but I felt like I needed more. When I helped my first student buy their first property, it wasn't my accomplishment, it was theirs, but I felt fulfilled because I helped another human being get what they most wanted in life. And I've been chasing that that's why my goal is to help 1 million people, is because the more people that I serve, the more money they make, the more money I make, and we all win. So I'm thinking, how do I serve more and more people? So I appreciate you noticing that, because that's honestly, if we all just served each other, my goodness, this world would be a much better place.
100%. Couldn't have said it better. And certainly taking inspiration from the Bible is certainly something we talk about a lot on this show as well. And there's just so much truth to it. You always get the fulfillment when you're washing the feet of someone else, when you're helping them lift up and build new communities. And you're really building generational wealth and knowledge, which is something that a lot of people are desperately in need of. It's always nice to have the one grandpa that made it big in gold back in the 50s, whatever, but generational wealth is something that really, if we could sort of unlock the key to that, and this might be a great way to do that, we can set up generations and bloodlines for years and years and years to come. So, and again, you're right. All of a sudden, I've got 50 properties. I'm going to have kids and grandkids. I do have kids, but they're going to need houses. Grandkids are going to need houses. Nice to have these assets and opportunities and options to pass that down. So, Dustin, your work is incredible. I can't wait to get more and more involved. Masterpassiveincome.com. Text rental to 33777. If you're feeling frisky and got a few dollars to burn, head over to the Income Building Live Conference. That's in Nashville, coming up on March the 19th. Tune into the podcast, like and subscribe, not only to the Measuring Post, but to his Master Passive Income. Any final closing thoughts you want to share before we wrap this up?
No, well, one is you come back, you personally, you listening, come back every single week, listen to the podcast over and over again. Joe is bringing some great value. So that's one reason why I jumped on this interview, was because I see that he's same vision as me. Is like, how do we help more people? And if we all, like I said, if we all you've personally focused, and Joe and myself, we all focus on helping other people, everybody's life's going to get better. And a lot of people look at me, and what I want them to see me as a next door neighbor. Just like Joe, like, hey, we just found something. Let me just help you out. And so I really appreciate it. But yeah, I love helping. If you are one of those million people that I can help in my life to invest in real estate, that's all the joy that I get. So I appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah, 100%. And don't worry, guys, if you were driving and listening to this, you didn't write down the website, the number to dial. I'll put it all, links around everywhere. We'll tag Dustin on social media so you can find him directly. But I encourage you to explore this. Obviously, we understand the day-to-day, paycheck-to-paycheck lifestyle. Right now, it might be a necessity. But how do you break out of that circle? And this is a great way to maybe explore some opportunities. So get involved, stay tuned in, more information to come. But thank you guys for tuning into the Measuring Post. Dustin, appreciate all your knowledge sharing here today, and can't wait to see what we can do together moving forward.
Thanks, buddy.